Hi, this is Dr. Amalfitano, and welcome to this short mini lecture on gathering and analyzing assessment data. There are 5 steps that we'll talk about in this mini lecture on data analysis. First, gathering data, where to look. Second, developing your analysis plan. Third, how to go about analyzing your data. Fourth, interpreting the results. Fifth, implementing changes. The first step, gathering data, is one that you can spend as much or as little time as you have, and it's actually a lot of fun. Consider telling a story. The first thing you're doing in telling a story would be to collect all the information that you might possibly need about that story. So if we're talking about assessment, you want to first look at existing data sources, such as the MEEP, AYP, DIBELS, etc., any other large-scale school testing. In Michigan, mischooldata.org is one of the most helpful resources you can find. You also want to consider different levels of data: individual student, classroom, whole school, district level, statewide. You'll also want to look at different areas in terms of formative versus summative data. Decide what type of technology you're going to use for storing your data. Make sure that you integrate any school improvement plan goals and objectives. And some of the ways that many people find it easy to get data would be from those learning management systems and other assessment tools mentioned in our class, such as Classroom, PowerSchool, Sycamore, Infinite Campus, Socrative, Plickers, Kahoot, Confer, even programs like Senior Wooly, RazKids. All of those produce a wide variety of data. The second step, developing an analysis plan, is one of those steps that starts out seeming extremely wide open, and then as you apply different filters, it narrows down until you have some manageable steps that you can take. I mean, think of it simply as a process of elimination, just like you were buying a car or buying a house. You start out with tons and tons of possibilities and options, and as you look at what is realistic, what you have control over, those things narrow down until what you have left is then where you start with developing your analysis plan. So you gathered all your data, then you need to look at things such as measuring progress on standards and benchmark. What data aligns with that can help you measure that? Secondly, you want to prioritize those key areas of interest and possible impact. It's like anything else. You've only got so much time and energy to invest, so where are those ones that are going to have the most payoff in the end? What points of collection and analysis are you going to use? I mean, a lot of the standardized tests are given at certain times. School district often control those elements, but in terms of your own practice, are you going to be using formative and summative assessments and other scoring information daily, weekly, monthly? You'll need to make sure for those items that you do set time and go ahead and put it on your calendar at the beginning of the school year as a routine process for you to effectively develop your analysis plan. You also want to make sure that any external requirements are met, as well as, considering thoughtfully those things that are in internal focus. It might be that is the year that your school has a heavy emphasis on reading or citizenship, or just is starting a one-to-one program. So again, get the most bang for your buck and look carefully at how you can invest it with those things that need attention. Also, you want to make sure that you're considering what assessment data you have versus grades. Those are, as we've talked about in other lectures, separate items. In practice, there are also a number of logistical items that you really want to give good thought, because no matter how well-intentioned we may be, if we do not have logistical support or they don't fit our particular setting, they're not going to happen. So again, looking at where's your biggest need, the formative or summative data. What is your recording strategy? So what is the way that you're going to take the data and keep track of it in a way that you will be able to access it and share it with others? Who is responsible for gathering and submitting data? What do you have control over again, and what do you not? Sometimes that will also control the interface that you choose. Who is, has the oversight for the data? Do you need to report out? Is it only at your grade level, your subject area, school level, district level? Again, that's another controlling factor that you'll need to consider as you create this plan. Your district, school, and classroom improvement, again, what's needed, by who, and when, and in what format. Validity and reliability issues we'll talk about in a little bit more depth, but those are also things that you want to, deeply consider. Anything with technology assessment typically is very reliable, but it does not always mean it is. The first term, validity, evolved from psychometrics, and that's the degree to which a test item measures what it was designed to measure. There are three main types: internal, external, and construct. Construct validity is whether or not you are measuring what you say you're going to measure. Again, did you really measure achievement, or did you measure how they did on a particular test? Is the reading comprehension actually demonstrative of their ability to read, or is it something that they could have sought out the answers and replaced? External validity. So in other words, if multiple people in multiple settings give the same test, is that construct in the way it's designed consistent, and does it give the same type of answers from the students over time? An internal, that is within itself, when a student takes it, if they take it multiple times, would they be giving the same responses, or would their responses differ over time based on their moods, or whatever happens to go that way, which would imply that it's not valid. Issues in validity can often be resolved by using multiple data points, and that's often a weakness in technology-based assessments because we collect multiple data points. However, they are often using the same type of definition in assessment strategies such as multiple choice, true, false, and whatever is most convenient at times for large groups of people. Reliability, the second term, is simply the consistency of results. It can be resolved by using inter-rater measures, so in other words, more than one person scoring it. And then this is the area that's often the strength of technology-based assessments and why we so often use them, because multiple choice and other test items, as we all know, can be scored again and again and again by the machine and will always get the same response. Okay, you gathered all kinds of data, you have a plan for it, you made sure that the data you're getting is valid, it's reliable, and now it's time to analyze it. And when we're looking at a set of data, really we're looking at a set of data that's going to tell us a story. Where do we go next? What do we do about our students? Because that's really what we're looking for. What do we need to do to improve the learning of our students? So you want to consider things such as what content standard were you assessing? What % of students were proficient? What implications does that have for instruction? I mean, if 2/3 get it, is that enough? Or do they all need to get it? What if only 1/3 gets it or is proficient? Which students have not demonstrated that they can do this? What kind of demographics do they fall into? Just as much of importance as which students can. What diagnostic information did an exam of student work provide? What can we learn about what they're thinking? That's, again, it's not enough to know whether they did it right or wrong. What we need to figure out is where is the mistake in their conceptual thinking around the concept we're teaching them. Based on individual student performance, then what do we need to do next to move the student to proficiency? That's where the diagnostic skills are so much important, so that we don't waste their time or ours. Based on the whole class performance also, again, what reteaching do we need to do? What other units might it affect? So think in terms of this data telling you a story, but it's not enough to just know the story and the basic facts. When we compare performance by subgroups, such as racial group, gender, students with disabilities, ESL students, students in free and reduced lunch, do we see any groups not performing as well as the whole group? If so, what are we going to do about that? Typically, groups have specific interventions already in place. Individuals may or may not. Do we have any students who are not attaining proficiency across different indicators? What diagnostic information do we have about them to inform instruction? What interventions did we already try? Because again, if we've already tried them and the teacher before us, the year before, more of the same thing is not going to work. We do build up an immunity just like we do often to treatments for disease. So we need to look at what interventions do we plan next that would have a different impact than before. Communicating the data is a big part of how we basically build our team around us in order to support the student learning. And so we need to consider that we are the expert in education and we know our curriculum and what our students did. So what kind of graph or visual representation can we use to help community members, to help the parents, to help the students understand what it is that they did well and what it is that they need to improve upon, and what kind of help might get them there. You know, the traditional ways are typically pie charts, line graphs, bar graphs, box plots. You also might want to consider using color coding. That's extremely effective. If you have more complex data, you also want to think of using more complex tools. Data visualization is now a new field in itself. It did not used to exist, but that's something that technology does bring to assessment. It brings us many, many ways to create that story from the numerical data and give it different shape, different color, different relationship. Hans Rosling is the first person that I recall sharing what I now know is data visualization. You can find his material on gapminder.org, GAPMINDER.org. And again, if you haven't done so recently, go into a new Excel document, click on Insert in the top menu ribbon, and spend a bit of time exploring the different possible charts and spark lines you see available. There are a lot of differences from what many of us learned when we were in our own teacher education programs. In the notes section, you will see another link for a blog that lists 38 different tools that can help you make extremely fascinating data visualizations from simple data. In this picture, do you see spindles or do you see people? You know, remember those optical illusions where depending on how you're looking is whether or not what you see? One of my favorite statements in terms of statistics and data is there are three kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. And that's because there are so many different ways that you can take that data and interpret the results. And it's our role as professional educators to make sure that we do so in a way that is ethically appropriate. You want to use the results to inform professional development for the purpose and focus. You want to make sure that the leadership team reviews results. You want to develop and update your plan for improvement based on real data. And you want to evaluate professional development and be an advocate for change and improvement. And we can only do this if we really look deeply at the story the data is telling us, rather than creating the story that we want it to tell from the data that we see. When it comes time to implement the changes, think in terms of small steps and baby steps, but often you can use these data visualizations and the data to get support for your school improvement and making sure that you get the AYP. Decision making in most schools is now shared amongst teachers and administrators. And the data that you share can help impact classroom instructional practice, and in turn that impacts student learning, both at the individual level and then all the way on up to the district level. When you're implementing change, sometimes people will get into struggles because there are many organizational issues that surround making change, such as training, support, apps, time, all kinds of things like that. There are also many ongoing evaluation and improvement organizations, such as with the NCLB, the SBA, now it's ESA, where often we do not have as much control as we would like over these features for school improvement and implementing changes. I hear many educators feel as if they are disempowered and cannot make change in terms of assessment or to improve student learning. And in that case, I beg to differ. And this is one of my favorite all-time videos. It's from a TED Talk, and it's called How to Start a Movement. As always, you can find additional information on these topics in our Blackboard shell using the web resources and the web links folders. Don't forget to look at our collaborative assessment tool document as well.